to see you all today. We're happy to be here, and had a very long week. My wife is up in New York. She's been up there since Tuesday. She's actually had a really great experience. She was part of a national leaders meeting, looking at our communities and how we can move forward. She's probably got a lot to share with you that I can't share everything, but she really felt so blessed out there and really appreciates everyone's support. And now she's actually equipping children's pastors around the country. She's in the program there. They're doing a little camp for the kids, as well as she's taking time to work with all the children's pastors around the country. So that's been a really neat thing that she can be a part of. And to think about how, while we're many smaller communities around the country, we also have a greater movement that we're a part of, trying to bring God's love to this world, to this nation. And each one of us are doing our own part in our own places, but as part of that greater puzzle, and to see that coming together is such a blessing. And so she's there representing all of you, and it's a very exciting time. And, but other things are going on too. I wanted to just offer up also this week, actually Terry just let me know her brother-in-law, Casey's brother, is very sick suddenly, and so they're leaving right away to Japan. So just keep them in your prayers, their family. And Casey hasn't seen his brother in a long time, so it's a big trip to Japan. So please support them in our prayers. We have to be here for one another in all of our different struggles and our victories and our challenges in life. And so when we just keep each other in our prayers and keep each other in our thoughts, it really gives a lot of strength. Even if we don't know it, that power is what keeps us going through in our life. Because there are many challenges that each one of us face. And last week we were sharing about all these challenges, right? And sometimes life not seeming fair. That God gave us our own portion of responsibility, our own opportunity to be there for our brothers and our sisters. When Cain said, am I my brother's keeper? God probably wanted to say, yes, you are. Please be there for your brother. Watch out for your brother. Care for your brother. Each one of our role is to be there and support one another, to fill in the gaps in a world that needs God's love, in a world that desires people to stand up and give that love to one another. So today we're talking about restoration, of recreation, of God's plan to rebuild this world. Everything that was lost and the challenges that came between God and man and between husband and wife, between different families, different clans, different nations, all those things that were not in God's original plan need to fade away and go into the history books. And we need to build a new world where God's love is supreme, where resentments and regrets and pains and differences don't keep us apart, but love draws us together, and that love needs to come from the source of it all, from God's love, right? This higher love. And we reach in our own lives, as we study, as we pray, as we come closer in relationship with God, the natural response or the natural evolution in our hearts is to be able to give love like God to other people. But we need to go through a lot of stuff in our own hearts and in our own lives in order to get to that point, to make those steps towards a better life. And now, I imagine everybody in here, I know you're all wonderful people, but still have a desire to recreate yourself, to see yourself more in the image of God, right? Each one of you is struggling with some point here or there. Something you wish you were a little bit kinder, a little bit more patient, a little more loving. And God puts that desire in our hearts, that aspiration for something bigger, something greater. God reminds us that, hey, you still got this. You're still moving forward. I know we've got some time to go and we've got some steps to still take, but I believe in you and I want to be there for you. And that's why God often comes in and gives these grace moments, these loving moments, to give us that step forward, but also a reminder of where we're heading. We still have steps to go. Sometimes God needs to call our attention in our life. So sometimes situations come up that we weren't expecting, we weren't planning. Maybe we don't feel we deserve. Maybe life's been challenging enough, and then suddenly something happens and it shocks us And we come to God and we go, God, why? Why did that happen now? Now, I don't know about you, but when lights go on behind me, sirens, I get a little nervous. Does that happen to anybody? Sometimes even I'm like, I know it's not for me this time. I've been checking my speed, but those lights go on and I get nervous, right? Anybody ever get anxious when that happens? Yeah. I know none of you ever speed or forget to do your blinkers or anything, but it still makes you nervous, right? When I was younger, it really made me nervous. Now, as I've grown up and I've gotten older, I realize, okay, well, I'm not doing anything really bad right now, and maybe even if they pull me over, it'll help correct me. But when these go off, right, it gives a shock to our body. And we pull over to the side of the road, we start playing out all these different scenarios and what we're going to say. And, should I make up some story? Or should I, just be really honest? Maybe I'm having a bad day. Am I going to explode on this guy? I was only going 10 over, and you want to let him know that he's wasting his time. Hey, why don't you go pull over some drug dealer or something? Why are you wasting your time with me? All these different thoughts go through our head. How we're going to get out of this ticket. So I was reading an article recently about tickets and about how police look at tickets. And of course you have some police that are just itching to give a ticket, but for the most part, their desire is just to keep safety on the roads, right? We want to believe that. And most police, their desire is just, let's keep it safe on the roads. And so when they do pull you over, it's not because they were gunning for you or they didn't like the look of your face or didn't like your car or, they're just mean people. It's because they think if they keep driving this way, somebody could get hurt. Somebody might get hurt. So I need to pull them over. And so this officer was talking, there was all these different stories about different instances where police were coming back and, they were thinking, I pulled this guy over because he was going a little fast. I was just going to give him a warning and ask him to slow down. And then when I got to the door, the guy started screaming and yelling at me and telling me, where I should go. And the cop starts thinking about this and feeling this energy. And he goes, all right, I think you don't really get the point, right? You made the mistake, not me. And I'm trying to help you out, but now you're making this difficult. And so they might start looking for other areas where you might have broken the law. You start looking around and you go, hey, your tires are looking a little lame here, or, oh, look at this, taillight's out, And suddenly you go from the chance of just getting a warning to, a $300 ticket, adding on all these different fines. They said they really don't like to push all these different things, but if you give them attitude, if you really push them, then they think, this guy's not learning a lesson, so I've got to add on more to him. I've got to make him know that he made a mistake and he's got to make a change in his lifestyle. But they also said, if they come to their door, police are having a stressful day, they deal with all sorts of bad people, and they're going to check these cars, there's a fear for their life. So if you just smile, if you're polite, if you're honest, they realize that we're all humans, and most of them realize, hey, we've all sped a little bit, we've all made a mistake, and their hope and desire is just give you a warning. Say, hey, next time, I have to pull you over, I'm going to give you a ticket, but this time, let's just try and slow it down a little bit. Be careful, the roads are dark or it's slick out here. But the intention of the ticket, the intention of these warnings, is to help us be better citizens, right? In a world where we all comply with the laws, then the roads are smooth and people aren't crashing, it reduces accidents, right? And so they want us to remember what are the laws, what are the privileges we signed up, we signed for this license, we said, hey, we're going to obey the laws. So how do we follow those so that everybody is safe? I read a story about in Germany, they have this town that they were trying out this thing. They kept putting up all these different slow signs in the middle of the downtown. And then one day they thought, what if we take out all the signs? And they started removing all the signs. And they let everybody know what the guidelines were, but they took away all the signs. And what they started to see were people desired to follow rules. And they desired to be safe and wary of other people. And when the signs were there, they kind of forgot about, they thought, oh, everybody else is following the rules, so I'm okay. But when there was no signs, they felt responsibility. And then they started noticing people were driving smoother, there was no traffic anymore, less accidents were happening. They thought, wow, how did this happen, right? When we give responsibility to people, when we encourage people, this is the rules and this is why we're doing it, they actually lived in a better way. Now, in most places that wouldn't work. Like I feel the Autobahn works in Germany because, well, they're very rule-oriented people, and so they say the left lane is fast, and if you're not passing someone, you get out of the left lane. But, somewhere like here, it might not always work, right? So these different rules are in place to help us be more safe, to live more safe, to get us back in line. And so again, back to the tickets, the point of the ticket is not to penalize you, not to make your family go through a hardship, not to make you miss another bill, but it's to wake you up to the reality that there are rules in place for a reason, and we all want to be safe. So I want to read this to you. Until now, people have not understood their portion of responsibility, and to have not understood the twists and turns of the past. Why were good people sacrificed while things went well for evil people? Right? That's one of our biggest frustrations, right? If you look at history, why is it that dictators ruled the world while even a good king, while he emerged, was not able to unite the world? Only the dreams of unifying the world that dictators have advocated are recorded. That is because this is Satan's world. Because the realm of human portion of responsibility was invaded. Even if we look at all humanity, at all people in the earthly world, and even at all the ancestors who are here and who went to the spirit world, there's not been a single person who could fulfill their portion of responsibility. This can be understood through the principle. I did not just randomly put these concepts together. If we do not understand the issue of human responsibility, we cannot resolve all the complications of history. Why has history been one of war? Through the fulfillment of the portion of responsibility, conditions of goodness can overcome the conditions of evil. We must carry on the fight, grappling with those who have become part of the fallen world. That is why history reflects the conflicts of good and evil. Right? So why do bad things happen to good people? Well, because there's a tendency for this world to be controlled by selfish desires, by people that are looking out for me, and they don't recognize the people that they might be cutting off, people they might be trampling over. Just like on the streets, right? You're driving down and there's that guy, no blinkers, swerving in and out. And he causes accidents for the people that are following the rules, that are trying to do good. In life, this kind of evil, this selfish tendency, this tendency to think I'm more valuable than anybody else, and no one else has the same value as me, right? When we don't look at people as God's children, then we have this ability to trample over their hearts. So this is why evil has prevailed. But then when we start looking into God's words, and when we start looking at what God is trying to do, we see our portion of responsibility, how we can use our love, our living for the sake of others, our generosity, our care, our forgiveness, our kindness, to overcome these natural inclinations, these unnatural inclinations of evil, of selfishness, and return people to the natural desire to be loving, to be good, to be kind. We need to wake up people. But sometimes God uses things to wake us up, just like those sirens. When you look at the Bible, you look at how God has woken up people that were spiritually asleep, that were oblivious to what was going on around them. God used things like a burning bush, right? Kind of hard to not see that, right? And Moses watched, he's wandering, he's out in the desert, he's doing his shepherding, and he's walked away from his people, his responsibility. And God put him in a special place. I mean, he was, being raised up in the Pharaoh's own home. He could have been an advocate for his people, but instead he fled, right? So God said, hey, wake up, Moses. I got something for you. Because I need my people set free. I need to take this step of Exodus. So I need you to wake up. And Moses knew, he was going his own way. And then he starts throwing out all his excuses. Well, I don't really know the Jewish people so well. I was raised separate. Oh, I have this stutter. I can't speak well. You know. God woke him up and said, hey, this is the job. This is what we need to do. This is what you need to overcome. Now then there's Jonah. You know, Jonah's this great prophet, and he loves to speak to certain people, but he definitely doesn't like to speak to some. Especially the Ninevites. He hates them. He thinks they should experience the wrath of God. He's happy that God is mad at them. And so he keeps trying to run away from his goal, and he's swallowed up by a fish. Right there, wake up call. You can't run away. You can't run away from your responsibility, but God has something he desires of each one of us, something he's calling us to do. To be an example of love, to be an example of kindness, of generosity, of living for the sake of other people. So God wakes us up sometimes. Spiritually, the alarms go off and we go, oh, yeah, wow, I was just kind of coasting through life. But there's this providence of restoration. There's this process that God has been using to wake up people, to bring people back to their original intention. The providence of restoration refers to God's work to restore human beings to our original unfallen state so that we may fulfill the purpose of creation. So there's this point where we're saved. We're pulled out of the boat, right? And God reaches out and says, you're saved. You're back with me, son. I'm here with you. Let's experience this life together. But then there's a process then to rebuild ourselves, right? To make sure we don't fall back into the water. To make sure next time we're not drowning. To make sure next time we have the strength to overcome things, right? So God wakes us up, but not just wakes us up to coast through life, wakes us up to recreate and rebuild ourselves. To come and imitate Christ. And it's a process where we have to cut out certain habits, certain characteristics. We have to face ourselves in the mirror. Realize now is the time to resolve to change these things and to adopt new habits, to adopt new characteristics. And so it's a process of recreation. A process to rebuild what was lost at the beginning of time. And so when we look at this, there's this process that we do this is called indemnity. Now, indemnity is to repay what was lost, right? To make amends for the mistakes and come back to the original state. To come back and become made whole. When I looked this up online, the only definitions are in reference to insurance companies. And how you can take out something that says, if this person makes a mistake, I'm going to be responsible. It's this funny thing where we take responsibility even for other people's failures. Or most of the time you're saying, that person's going to be responsible to me to pay for my mistake. So the idea is how to make things whole. To say, hey, mistakes might happen. There might be a fumble. There might be a stumble. But there's an effort to reclaim and to rebuild myself and to come back into that original state that God built us, right? God built us in such a way that he was so happy, so joyful, so excited to see us. And then we separated, and so now God has to bring us back, but not only save us, but help us recreate ourselves to be like his original intention. So we pay the toll of indemnity in order to restore ourselves. Something we all want to do, right? I want to be the best self I can be. I want to be the best husband I can be to my wife. I want to be a better father to my children, right? I want to be a better brother to my community here. I want to be a better neighbor. I want to restore myself. There's things in my life that I want to get rid of, that I want to rip away, that I want to put away. There's attributes I want to adopt. I want to be a better example. And so this is a process to restore ourselves. And restoration is a course of recreation. So we must do the same thing that God did at the time of creation. Invest yourself. Invest your whole energy, your whole being. And this justifies Jesus' words. If you want to lose your life, you will gain your whole life. So when we're willing to put down the things that are making us comfortable, the things that we've clung to, those old habits that we're stuck to, when we're willing to lay that down, God opens up the doorway. He says, come through this doorway. I'll take you through the doorway, right? And you can be made anew. I can give you a new self, and I can give you a new shape. But it's not easy to do. It's not easy to pay back something, especially when you don't feel you were responsible in the first place. Right? How hard was it for Esau, right? When he thinks, I made the offering too. But then he's got to take that next step. Oh, that's so painful, right? Or I Cain, right? Making that offering, and he doesn't get to be part of the blessing. It's difficult. Sometimes we even pay for the mistakes of others. For God's children, sometimes we take on the mistakes that other people made and find ways to restore relationships with other people. We become a middle person trying to bring love and support to other people. And so there's this process by which we need to let down our own desires, our own needs, and open up our hearts to the needs of others and show how this recreation can start to work. So there's three different types, right, of indemnity, of ways to make things right again. We saw different types last week. We saw the lesser indemnity. You know, when the younger brother, the prodigal son, comes back to his father, you know, he doesn't pay back everything he owned. He doesn't come there and say, hey, Dad, I really messed up. Here's everything I lost for you. Let's make this right. He comes back. He's not expecting anything. But the love of his father takes responsibility for those mistakes and just embraces them, right? So this is lesser indemnity. This is asking for less. Hey, as long as you showed up, I'll take care of the mistakes. I'll repay it. We'll figure this out. But then what do you think the rest of that brother's life is, right? It's probably him still trying to pay it back, right? I might not have the money to pay back my father, but now I'm going to start listening to him. I'm going to start connecting with him. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to take on some of my brother's workload. Now, that's the proper attitude when you're given that kind of blessing. How can I repay it? Just through my love and my offering. And then there's the second type of indemnity, equal indemnity. Hey, I made this mistake. I'm just going to pay it back to you, and we're clean and clear, right? We're going to forget about it. And then there's this greater indemnity, right, where I made a mistake. Maybe I allowed it prolong or get bigger and bigger. Maybe I didn't address the problem, and then interest rates went up. And we have to pay a greater fee. And so in our lives, our point, our purpose, our hope is to become whole, to become people that can be filled with God's love, to be people that can have love with our brothers, our sisters, our family. But we need to cut out some of the excess weight and bring on more God's love, more God inside of us. So when you look at your own life, some of these cases might be, you know, hey, I got in an argument with my wife. You know, it could have been, hey, we had this conversation and hey, we had different viewpoints, and I sat there and I talked it through. But instead, maybe I said some things I shouldn't have said, or maybe I didn't talk and I walked away from it, which would be more likely with me. And now I've exasperated the problem, right? It was this little thing. It was who's taking out the garbage, whatever it was, right? And now it's this big thing. And now in order for me to get back to the table, I've got to bring a gift, right? I got to bring some kind of, you know, offering. You know, I say, hey, here's some flowers, here's some chocolate. I was a jerk. Please forgive me. And so I got to do this first now in order to get to that first part. And then we get back to that issue. And okay, now I'll go take out the trash. Don't worry about it. But next time it's on you, right? Whatever it is, right? You have to make that bigger offering in order to restore the relationship. And sometimes it's something like, hey, I've been really unhealthy recently, and so I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to start exercising, and I'm going to cut out my unhealthy behaviors. Maybe I'm not going to sit in front of the TV as long anymore, and I'll just try and walk around a little bit more. Whatever it is, right? Maybe you've been receiving it and reading and watching a lot of junk, right? Stuff that just makes you upset, makes you frustrated. You go, okay, I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to listen to positive music. I'm going to read positive books. I'm going to engage with positive people. Yeah, restoration doesn't just happen by us saying, hey, I want to be good, but it also says I'm going to cut away from what was bad. It's not just I want to be kind, but I'm going to stop being rude and mean. Not just I want to be patient, but you're right, you have to do both sides. You have to cut off from what was holding you back, what was hurting you, what was making the relationship, experience friction, and then acquire new habits, acquire new tendencies, new characteristics. And it's not easy. It can be so painful. I was watching this video once, and this guy was coming to God, and he said, God, I want to be a better person. And so this other guy comes, and he's got a chisel, and he starts knocking off these bad characteristics of this guy. The guy goes, ow, that hurts. He goes, I'm trying to make you a better person. I'm trying to build you into the person you want. He goes, ow, okay, do it again. Okay, I'll give my life to you, God. And then God goes at him again. I'm going to take out that selfishness. I'm going to take out... And then the guy goes, no, not that one. I like that one, actually. God said, no, but do you want to give your life to me? Do you want to be that new creation? Sometimes it's a challenge. But God gives us that responsibility, and sometimes it doesn't feel fair. Sometimes it's hurtful, it's painful to process things. Sometimes we felt, it's better to just put that away, get it out of my mind, never think about that person again. But God wants us to confront those people with love and restore those relationships. God wants to confront those habits, those characteristics, and address them and start changing our ways. God wants us to open His book, to take some time in prayer. Yes, you want to hit the snooze button 3 more times, but I really need you to wake up and really center your life. Because your life's been all over the place, and you're just kind of dragging through, and you feel like day after day, I have no energy, I've got no strength, I can't go on. God says, that's because you're filling your life with junk, and I'm asking you, open up your day, your heart, your life to me. When you start reading God's Word, when you start praying, you have these convictions, and they feel uncomfortable sometimes, but it's God waking us up. God's waking us up so that we can live the life that we're supposed to live. And it's not only for our own lives, it's not only for our own sake, but when we look at this world, God's sometimes going to ask us to take on someone else's burden, to help patch up other relationships, to bring harmony. And we do a lot of programs with other churches, other faiths. The Women's Federation does these peace bridges, these unity bridges, and they come together, and they come black and white or different religions together, and they forgive each other, and they ask for forgiveness, and they say sorry, and they're restoring and confronting these things that maybe have nothing to do with them. But they're making an effort to put that past in the past, to put that hatchet down, to put that pain away, and allow people to process and move forward. And Christ on the cross, right? He took in all the sins of the world. He was born sinless, but then He takes on the sins. He says, I'm going to take your burdens. I'm going to take your mistakes. And give you a chance, a fighting chance, to start a new life. Reverend Moon's whole life is living for the sake of others, saying, I'm going to take your responsibility. And even when you make a mistake, I'm going to take more responsibility. I grew up in a family, and most of us, right, grew up in families with missionary parents that were going out, that were saying, I'm going to take on the chance to help other people, and I'm sacrificing my family sometimes. I'm sacrificing things that are dear to me. But it's because I love the world so much, and I love God, and I know the pain God has gone through, looking at people and saying, this is what you can be, and this is who you choose to be. I look at myself in the mirror and I go, wow, this is what I could be. And I imagine and I daydream about, the health that I would have and the energy I would have and the generosity I would have. And then I do things that don't allow me to take that step, right? And then I go, oh, that sounds really nice, but maybe I'll just binge watch Netflix for a while. I'll wake up in the morning and go, oh, it'd be really nice if I go visit this person and help them out. Well, maybe I can go to my neighbor and ask him if he needs some help. I go, yeah, but I'd rather go sit and eat some food, right? So it's a challenge to take on other people's responsibility, to step out there. But God counts on us and God depends on us. And the biggest thing is God believes in us. God looks at you and goes, you got such a beautiful heart. You were made in my image. You were made for a purpose, for a time such as this. If you realize what we could do if we worked together, if you opened your heart, if you opened your mind, you would be unstoppable. So it's this process of restoration. It's this process that I run from, indemnity, this idea of sacrificing, of doing things that I hate to do, of fasting maybe, of doing a cold shower, of doing these things that make me uncomfortable. But when I do these things, I start waking up and realizing who I can be. And in the end, it's worth it. That's why I'm here. I think that's why all of you are here. Spending your morning here to get face to face with God, to hear God's word. And not just sleeping in the morning, but saying, hey, I want to hear this stuff, and I know sometimes it's going to be something I don't like or I disagree with, but it's going to challenge me, and we're going to take a step forward. So in order to restore this world, in order to fix this world, right, this selfishness comes out of people's individual desires, right? The pain, the evilness in this world comes from people that are focused on themselves, obviously. Their whole focus, me. So how do we reverse this? How do we bring restoration? Is by living for the sake of others and showing that we're willing to put our hearts out there. We're willing to put our time out there, our efforts, our energy, our finances, in order, to make people realize, hey, I can have a good life while not only thinking of myself. Actually, the only way to have a good relationship, a good family, a good job, is to put others' needs before yours. It's the only way it lasts. We have to wake up people to this reality and transform this world from the world it's been and bring it into the world that it can be. So through prayer and education and working, right? Not just prayer, but education and working, right? We can reverse this selfish tendencies that isolate this world and bring about a world where people desire to be together. And when we collectively live this way, making effort to live for the sake of others, to give our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our souls for the sake of others, we can finally realize the prayer of Jesus, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Don't be afraid of a little sacrifice, a little indemnity. God has much bigger plans for you, and hopes for you, and dreams and desires for you. So let's give our hearts to God this week. Pray that God comes into your heart, that He opens your eyes to see what it is that you should be working on. We all have something small, at least, that we can work on, that we can absolve, that we can make an effort to overcome. And we can take that step into the promised land. So brothers and sisters, let's go together. Let's be here for each other. Keep each other in your prayers. Keep each other in your thoughts, so that we can have the strength to overcome the things that we wish to overcome. Let's join in prayer. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, our God, you spent so much time to create this world, so much effort, your hopes and dreams, your desires to see us flourish, to see us laughing and dancing together with our families, to see us united with other peoples, God. But so many generations, God, you have not been able to have that joy. You have not been able to come and see your children. God, for a long time we've been blind, spiritually asleep. unaware of your presence. While you've been shouting out, reaching out, trying to get our attention, to wake us up. Let us know that we are your children, that you love us desperately, that you desire to live intimately with us, God. God, help us to take away what's separating us from you. Help us have that resolve, that strength, that courage to confront the things that are separating ourselves from one another. God, our fears, our doubts, our mistrust of one another, God, help us put that down and see each other as you see us, to look at one another and say, I see your face and I see God. Right? So that we can resolve to make these changes, these differences. God, heal our hearts. Open our minds. Give us a heart like yours, God. Yeah, we thank you so much for your love and your blessings, God. We see your work and your hands evident in our life. That you have taken our twists and turns and shaped it into something good, God. And we want to trust and believe that you are continuing to do that, God. So please work in us and through us, God. Be with our brothers and sisters, God, those that are suffering, God, those in Odessa, God, that just lost their lives, God. Please be with those families, encourage them, and give them strength, God. Comfort those that have come to you more quickly than they thought they would. God, be with our brothers and sisters that are suffering through sickness and financial despair, through difficulties in their marriages and their relationships. God, help them see your love. And help us show your love. God, we want to offer this Sunday to you. We want to offer our lives, our hearts to you, God. To you, the God of love, God. We want to give our lives, our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and souls to you, God. And we offer this up. I pray this in all of our names and in your holy name, God. Amen and amen.